Now with the obsidian, again, it's one of the most absorbent of the stones for detrimental energies. So you're going to have to clear it from time to time. We're going to get to the clearing methods, a dozen different clearing methods in just a moment. But be aware you will need to clear it. Of all the absorbent stones, probably obsidian is one of the best in not having to be cleared regularly, because it can just absorb so much for so long. But do clear it from time to time. And every time that you clear it, also then re-instruct it after the clearing. Again, you could clear it in a way like Marcel Vogel, where you're just deleting certain files. I'm just taking the vertical negative green out of you and the other vertical waves, but still keep my instruction from before. But just to make sure you're covered, do the instruction again after you clear it to make sure it's still working. Now again, the exception to this whole clearing rule, if you're able to test energy, is the use of the Indigo Gabro. The Indigo Gabro has the capacity that when you test it, all of these absorbent stones, when we say that they're dark colored stones and they literally look dark or black, then that's also true vibrationally. So if I test it for the horizontal wave of black, then all these stones that are really good at absorbing toxic energy will have strong horizontal wave of black, even if their visible color is not there. If it has horizontal wave of black, that's the vibrational register. So same thing here for the mystic Merlinite, Indigo Gabro, has very strong horizontal beneficial wave of black. It gives it some of its absorbent capacities. And the thing again about the Indigo Gabro is that it will tend to absorb the toxicity. Again, you can instruct it what to do. It'll do it automatically to some extent, but it'll be much stronger if you instruct it. I've done a bunch of testing of this with instructed Indigo Gabro, mystic Merlinite, and uninstructed, and in various situations, testing it versus hematite beds for how quickly it clears it versus an iron rose quartz bed, etc. And if you instruct it, it's going to be one of the fastest things for clearing that you'll find as far as a natural mineral substance. And as we mentioned before, as a crystal adaptogen, one of its great powers is that ability to transmute detrimental energy to beneficial. So I've been astonished in what I've seen this do sometimes, to be able to draw in a lot of toxic energy, and then instead of being full of that toxic energy and my needing to clear it, it's just got BG3, it's just got the centering vibration. So that's quite unique out of all the stones that I've tested. So if you are not able to test energy, if you don't have the pendulums, you don't know how to use them, you don't have some advanced skill in being able to test vibration, I'd recommend you still clear the mystic Merlinite after you use it every time to make sure it's clear. But if you can test vibrationally, test for yourself. This is an amazing stone to experiment with. But for all these other stones, they're going to have to be consciously cleared from time to time. They don't self-clear, they don't transmute the same way. You could give it an instruction to transmute, and it may do it to some extent, but it simply doesn't have the intrinsic vibrations to do the transmutation at a high level. It'll try, it'll do what it can, but don't expect it to do something that's actually a crystallization of a divine thought form for the purpose of transmutation. They're two different things. So that's mystic Merlinite. We've talked about obsidian, and of course another one of the classic stones for absorbing toxic radiation is the stone that has been alchemically prepared in the earth from the quartz family to actually absorb toxic radiation. It's been prepared for this. It's like it's gone through an initiation. That's how I think of it. It's gone through an initiation in the earth, where it's been exposed to radiation in the earth, and now it's learned how to absorb lots of toxic radiation. Marcel Vogel, after the Chernobyl disaster, in one of his workshops, he was talking about, he's been looking at how to help clear up the radiation in Eastern Europe after Chernobyl. And at that time, he was working on the use of smoky quartz, because he found that the smoky quartz, and he was even doing things like testing with Geiger counters, finding ways to cut the smoky quartz and work with the smoky quartz so it would literally absorb toxic radiation read on a Geiger counter, and then after absorbing it, be able to actually reduce the reading of the Geiger counter of toxic radiation. That's work that I'm hoping to do more of in the future. I have a background in that in the military side, and I do want to look into more applications of that. I've done some so far, but there's a lot more I want to do. But smoky quartz is quartz in the earth that has been exposed to earth radiation, And again, this can be alpha, beta, gamma type of radiations in the earth. And it's been prepared to have been trained to absorb a lot of toxic radiations. So smoky quartz is a great stone for absorbing toxic radiation. It can absorb a lot of it. And it comes in many different ranges of darkness of color. This is one that we picked up to have available at this class that I thought was really interesting because the base of it is more toward the clear quartz, although there are smoky parts all through it. But then at the top, it's very, very strong black. And I've tested it, and this did not test for having artificial irradiation. And if it had been, the whole thing would look painted black. This is a very unusual stone. I've actually never seen anyone quite like this. Very interesting how it's put together. Lots of times you see them as more of a uniform type of color. But even with that, if it hasn't been artificially treated, if you hold it up to light, you'll see some parts are darker and some parts are lighter. That's because there's greater concentrations of certain minerals in it that have led to the darker color when it absorbed radiation. And that's a good sign if you can hold it up to the light and see differences inside. If it all looks painted black, it's probably artificially irradiated. Again, if you want to test that for artificial irradiation, because that's the main danger with smoky quartz, that it's been artificially irradiated. At that point, it'll test for very strong vertical negative green. Not only should you not use it in some therapeutic fashion, you shouldn't even have it in your house. It's a very toxic source at that point. So the smoky quartz is extremely useful for absorbing the detrimental energy because, again, being quartz, it can hold instruction very well. Again, it tends to be that the harder stones, and particularly the quartz family, holds instruction really well. Some other things, not so well. Then black tourmaline. Black tourmaline has a very long history of being used as a shield against toxic energies and psychic attacks, used in many different traditions. Now, it tends to be available in a lot of small pieces, as well as sometimes larger pieces. But because it comes in small pieces, it can be carried on the body. It can also be put over the entry into doorways to absorb toxic energy, etc. It's very, very good at that. But the issue with it is that although it's very good for absorbing toxic energy, and then you would clear it afterwards, it does not hold instruction well. It may be because it's so soft, and it tends to flake off and things like that, but it just really doesn't hold instructions very well. But nonetheless, a lot of people carry it, and it is quite useful for absorbing toxic energies. But just be aware you're not going to be able to give it a lot of instructions the way you would for obsidian or the smoky quartz or the mystic Merlinite. They'll hold it much better.